part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome to Books with Brooks, the monthly book club podcast. We are a part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and I'm coming to you in the month of February 2022 to talk about our book of the month, our book club book. It was called 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This was a Reese's book club book in like July 2021, I think. And we picked it as our romantic February read this year. And I am thrilled to have my friend Charlie here to talk about it with me. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Brooks.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. So happy to have you. It was a short month this month. I know a lot of us struggled to finish the book in time for book club this stupid month of February. So I'm really glad that we got it and we finished it, and now we can talk about it. Pats on the back all around. Charlie, do you want to quickly just tell us what this book is about? 7 Days in June?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for February, it's a romance novel.
Romance.
And let's see. So, main character is Eva Mercy, who's a erotic novelist.
Yes.
And she's got basically her own series that's like Twilight, about like a vampire hunter and like a
Yeah.
witch.
Yeah.
Um, and we kind of,
Some high fantasy.
yeah, high fantasy smut, but in the
Smut.
best way.
Honestly, I would read.
Yeah. And let's see. So we learn pretty quickly that Eva um knows this other author, Shane Hall, who's like the literary darling of New York, New York Times, America. He's like a recognizable author man. Um, and
Yes.
they've got history. They met each other in high school when they were both kind of misfits and kind of instantly clicked, and spent 7 days in June together.
That's right.
Uh,
7 days.
and then, like 15 or so years later, Eva has a child. She's an author. He's an author, and they reconnect. And that connection is still there between
Yep.
them.
That's right. Great summary there, Charlie. Well done. Yeah. So we've got this like
Yeah.
sexy premise, which is these writers who fell in love when they were like 17. It was like fast and furious, like very heavy and intense. And then they go their separate ways and they never don't see each other again, but they both start writing to each other kind of, or about each other, sort of like working through their traumas and like their feelings. And they do it in this way where it's like really obvious to each other that they're writing about each other, but obviously like the world doesn't know. And then when they reconnect, it's like a big scandal and like, ooh, like, oh, these two like famous authors. And wait, did they write about each other? Are these characters based on them? Like, so people start like really speculating. It's a cool premise. I like think it's really fun. I mean, it's obviously like outrageous and like fairly unbelievable, but that's okay. Like, I'm here for it. I think it's really fun.
You know, I lost whatever I was gonna say. I think just they were hot.
They were hot. They're really hot. And something else that I think is really important about this book, and is a big part of the marketing of this book, is that it's a Black love story. So basically, all the characters in this book, actually, maybe all of them, are Black. And these are two Black authors. And so they exist sort of in like the Black literary scene. But they're not necessarily writing about race. Like their books sort of transcend just like race relations. They're about real characters and real relationships and that kind of stuff. But the authors are Black. So that was, I think, like a big part of this book is we saw a lot of like sort of New York City, like Black culture and like literary culture, which was like really fun and
Yeah,
cool to read about.
it's social circles that we as white people don't specifically know too much about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I said during book club kind of made me feel like it was a offshoot of like Insecure, just like black
Mhm.
contemporaries in like a field who are all kind of celebrating their own successes and pulling
Yeah.
each other up, and
Mhm.
it shows that it's a small world for definitely black authors.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, so that's our book, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Charlie, did you like the book?
I did, yeah. I think I might be a secret fan of romance novels.
Ooh, what a thing to discover.
Yeah, cuz let's see. I last year we read,
Oh
God, was it the
gosh.
one on the beach?
It was in 5 years, I think.
Dang, that was a year ago.
I think
Um
so. Let me check our list, but I think it was in 5 years by Rebecca Searle.
yeah.
Um, and
Then
then
I
the
guess
year before.
2 years ago was Red, White and Royal Blue, which I loved.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, okay. Yes, February 2020 was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and last year was In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally enjoyed the book. I thought it was well written, and like the chemistry between Eva and Shane was just a lot of fun. Um, Definitely some like eye rolly, like
Yeah.
cheesy, or just like
Mhm.
overly erotic parts. Like, I flipped a little faster through the sex scenes because
Yeah.
you know, in a straight book that doesn't do too much for
Yeah.
me.
Totally. I mean, I we sort of debated this at book club, and I don't know if everyone agreed with me, but I actually didn't feel like there's really only like 2 sex scenes in this book. Like it wasn't like overly erotic in my opinion. Like
True,
it
true.
was much more about like their world and their relationship and like their connection, like their emotional connection, than it was about like just getting it on.
Absolutely.
I think, which I liked because I agree. I like get really uncomfortable oftentimes during like really like what was the elf sex one is what we always call it. The
Oh,
like
Crown of Thorns.
yeah,
No.
Crown of Thorns and Roses. Yeah, I think that's right. That one like did have a lot of sex scenes, and I was just like about them a lot of the time. So this book actually I felt like didn't hit that over the head too hard, which was good for me.
Yeah,
Um, I also liked it. I thought it was really strong. I thought I I don't like romance. I am not a secret romance fan, Charlie. I actually think that as a genre I kind of dislike it overall for a number of reasons, but this book felt like it to me, and not everyone in book club agreed with me, so if you're listening to this and you disagree, like valid as well. But I felt like this had a lot more meat, like a lot more character development than what I expect from a romance. And
definitely.
so that made me like it better. There was like a lot more to sink your teeth into. There's a lot more going on than simply the romance.
Definitely. One aspect of it that I really liked was that Eva suffers from an invisible disability.
Mhm.
And it was, not just character detail, but it influenced her career, her relationship with her kids, her I'm sorry, with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And it was just, a little bit of exploration into something that uh, is, I think, a little harder to depict in like media. So I
Yeah.
enjoyed that. For the listeners, she suffers from pretty debilitating migraines,
Yeah. Mhm.
and
Like chronic pain basically. Like
yeah, yeah,
migraines. Yeah.
and I haven't really read um, any books that touch on stuff like that. I mean, you could say Harry Potter's scar was a chronic pain
Oh my
condition,
god, I guess you could.
but I will not.
But we won't.
Yeah,
We could, but we won't. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and that was I'm glad you brought that up because that really was an interesting, I think, part of the book. And I know some people in book club were like, "Oh, I was so annoyed by that." But I kind of thought like that was the point or like that was the idea because people with invisible disabilities, like, people are annoyed by that. They don't understand. You can't see it. You can't understand it. You can't, it's really hard to empathize with someone like over and over and over again, like long term. So she lives this sort of like shadow life where she's really hiding this pain from everyone in her life, like as much as possible, because she knows like what the reaction to it's going to be. People won't believe her, they'll minimize, they'll be annoyed, like all the feelings I think you kind of have as a reader. Like people have that reaction in real life. So I thought it was cool too, because it wasn't like integral to the story, this problem that she has, but it was just like a part of the character, and it was treated that way. So it was cool. I thought it was really interesting and unique as well. And it was cool to see a character, because I'm sure many people there are millions and millions of people who have invisible disabilities or pain or whatever. So I hope they could see themselves in this character in a way that like maybe they haven't before, and that's very cool.
Yeah. I did do a little bit of Googling before hopping on to record with you
Oh,
today. And
tell me, what
apparently
did you learn?
Tia Williams, the author, suffers from the same like migraines as Eva. So
Oh,
very much
yeah,
close to home, like
that's
personal
right.
experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So she's like writing from experience, which I feel like once I learned that, I was like, oh yeah, I feel like I could tell. Like, because as someone who doesn't have that problem, it would be really hard for me to write a character that does, because I don't understand it. I've never lived it. Like, I don't know. It seemed like once I found that out, I was like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, of course she does. And that's how she was able to like write this really unique perspective and this really interesting character. Like, I thought that was cool. And like, I'm so sorry for her. She's obviously coping. She's got this like bestseller book, but like, that must be really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was cool. I agree. Okay. What are the major themes of this book, Charlie?
Ooh, let's see. So, I would say, oh God, I mean, I think there's a little bit of redemption. Um,
Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
there's,
Redemption.
I don't know, like misfit or alternative outcast. Like,
Yeah.
uh, it's tough to kind of put into words. I think the exact situation, but I
Yeah. Yeah, I
you
like
don't want to
redemption a
just say
lot.
love.
Right. I mean, love, obviously, like love. I wonder, I haven't thought about this one a ton myself, but I want to say something like responsibility maybe, or I don't know what the word is, but I just felt like Eva and basically all these characters, like they needed to like really show up for each other. Um and that was kind of a theme, and like Shane's like kind of inability to do that, or like her perception of his inability to do that, at like so informed sort of like the way she treated everyone in her life, um including like her mom. So I don't know, maybe like stability is a word, or like I don't know, I don't have a great word for it, but I just felt like because our two main characters had this like really unstable childhood, they really needed like people in their lives they could count on.
Yeah, definitely. And
So I
the
don't know,
way they
maybe that's
both,
like loyalty. I don't know.
yeah, I think the way they grew up, I mean, part of it was that they had to rely on themselves, and that's, you know, becoming responsible, growing
Mm,
into adulthood.
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Hey everyone, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. Backed by popular demand, I'm excited to let you know that new episodes of the Hyman Podcast will drop every other Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're going to continue the conversations we started last season and keep having those hard conversations. There is so much in store for you this season, and I'm excited to share it with you. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single moment. The Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, our first sentence, page 1. First sentence, and this is PG-13, I guess. I don't know if I had to give it a rating. In the year of our Lord, 2019, 32-year-old Eva Mercy nearly choked to death on a piece of gum. Okay, I guess that sentence is not PG-13, but if I read any further, it becomes that. Yeah, in the year of our Lord, 2019, 32-year-old Eva Mercy nearly choked to death on a piece of gum. What do you think about that sentence, Charlie?
Kind of makes me think of like brush with death, like sudden change in life situations or tropes. Uh,
Mm.
on its own though, without that next sentence about what she was doing while chewing gum,
Yeah,
uh, it doesn't tell you too much.
it doesn't. Yeah, so it goes on, and this is the PG-13 part. She'd been attempting to masturbate when the gum lodged in her throat, cutting off her air supply. So when I started this book, I was like, oh no. What have I done? Like, I really was like, oh, should I text people? I hope this is okay. I mean, obviously, I know that we're all adults and we've read like romance before, but this book jumped into it in a way that really scared me. And I actually don't think that this first scene is representative of the rest of the book in the end, but it's, yeah, she like has a near-death experience while masturbating, and that's how the book starts.
I mean, it lets you know right off the bat
Woohoo!
that sex is gonna be part of it. So, I mean,
Right, totally. Yeah. Well, and then I think in the very next chapter, she goes to like the sex dungeon restaurant and like meets with her fans, which is like pretty funny. Yeah. Chapter 1, Bite Me. A toast to our sex goddess Eva Mercy, hollered a cherub of a woman raising her champagne glass. Yeah, she like meets with a book club at a Manhattan restaurant, which the theme of is S&M.
I actually have ended up not in that restaurant, but like a place pretty similar.
Ooh, you have?
Yeah, they had mannequins all over, like covered in leather and very dark and smoky, and I guess it makes sense for I hate calling it smut, but like erotic novelist, like
Yeah,
fan
yeah.
club.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like it's kind of like 50 Shades of Grey-ish, I think.
Absolutely.
Like you could
Meets
definitely see
Twilight.
like yeah, right. Yes, meets Twilight. Absolutely. Which wait, wasn't 50 Shades of Grey like Twilight fanfic originally? I think it was.
It might have
I feel
been.
like
That sounds
or wait,
familiar.
is it the other way around? I feel like they were inspired by each other. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Um but yeah, we get like a really cool, hilarious glimpse into sort of what Eva's life has accidentally become as the author of these like really famous erotic novels. And like she's got these rabid fans who think of her as like as a sex goddess, as they've said. But then we find out that in fact Eva is the opposite of that. She has this chronic disability. She's a homebody. She's got a daughter who she puts first before everything. Like she's actually not the sex goddess they're all classifying her as, but she sort of like just keeps that on the down low.
Yeah, we never get too much about like how exactly she writes her books or like what it is that makes her fans so passionate about her work.
Yeah.
Like we don't get any excerpts of vampire lovin'.
Yeah, we don't. I totally would like to read them too. Like, I would like to read them. I feel like you're right. We don't get any of that. But she is trying to write. Is during this book, Eva is working on writing her 15th and final. I'll say that again. 15th and final book that like will wrap up the series, and that's what she's like really struggling with through all of this book. 15 books is so many, and she's only 32 years old, so please explain. That's so many books.
Yeah, I mean that's a book a year from when her and Shane meat.
Is that right? Yeah, something like that. Which is still a lot. A book a year? Come on. Wow, really churning them out. Charlie, did you have a favorite character?
So yeah, I would say Eva's daughter, Audrey,
Mm-hmm.
is uh I believe she's 12, and sometimes the books we read in book club have the most precocious
Yeah, well spoken.
children characters.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do. They really do.
Uh in ways that are just eye roll, cringe, just uh, frustrating to read. But Audrey was the kind who, got into a bit of trouble, was well rounded. She aspires to be a mental health counselor to like celebrities,
Yeah,
and gets
that's
in
right.
some trouble at school by doing Snapchat therapy sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she was very funny and just kind of bold and seemed like a just great kid.
Yeah, I liked her a lot too. I also liked Aunt Cece, who was like the ultimate like socialite. Like she was like always like behind the scenes, like puppet mastering and like making stuff happen. She was like really fun and very fabulous and really well dressed, and I liked her a lot too. But yeah, the daughter was like so cute and precocious and sweet and like yeah, she seemed great. She was really fun. All right, let's look at page 70. So page 70 is kind of when we get the like true like rekindling of the relationship. So basically Shane Hall, who's like this recluse. I don't know if we've mentioned, but he for many years was like had a serious drinking problem. And he has by the time this we're reading this book, he has gotten sober. He's been sober for like at least a year. He's like really working on himself. But part of what his like why he was such a recluse in like the writing world is because he was like always drunk and he didn't want people to know. So he comes to this panel, the discussion, which is like a panel of Black authors, and Eva's on the panel, and he shows up there out of nowhere, and everyone freaks out because he never does that. He never comes to this kind of stuff. So they get him on stage, and he participates in the panel like last minute, which I think is so funny. And then afterward, they have like words, the two of them, but they're like trying to be like low key about it, and they don't want people to like notice, you know? So Eva says, one thing, she whispered, her lips by his jaw. She didn't want anyone to overhear. Before I forget, what's that? Stop writing about me. Only Eva could have noticed the change in his expression. She saw the flinch, the slow, satisfied curl of his lip, his bronzy amber eyes flashing. It was like he'd been waiting years to hear those words, like the girl whose pigtails he'd been yanking during recess all year had finally shoved him back. He looked gratified. In a voice both raspy and low, and so familiar, Shane said, "You first." I like love that. They're like in this crowded room and they're both all dressed up and they've just been on stage and they haven't seen each other in like 16 years. And then they have this exchange. It's like so sexy.
Hard to imagine just like a 15-year like tw- twin flame situation. Like, ooh, it's that either one of them didn't just like fall apart or melt or like start dry humping in the middle of this room is impressive.
So impressive. So much self control. Yeah. Although, let's talk about wait, you've been to an S&M restaurant. Maybe you have also been to a dream house. So there's another sex scene. Well, maybe like one of the only couple sex scenes in this book. It takes place in this thing called the Dream House, which is like, I don't know, like some weird club in New York where you just go there to nap. Which I love the idea of this, and I wish Chicago had it. Well, not anymore because now I never leave my house. But before, when I had to work downtown all the time, I would like have loved to have a nap spot. Like, what a great idea!
Absolutely.
Have you ever been to a napping house, Charlie?
Unfortunately not.
Hmm.
I mean, I think the best we have is like if you've got a a bus on the way home, you can like close your eyes
Yeah,
for
just put your head on the window.
10 minutes
Yeah.
and
Totally. Yeah, so they go to this place called the Dream House and they sort of get like ushered in and it's like all quiet and like the lights are low and they get this room and like they're supposed to just nap, but of course they don't. They like start to make out and it escalates from there. But that was just like such a funny, like very New York like thing to have happen, I guess. I don't know. I liked it.
yeah, I mean, I think as just like a plot device, if you're in New York, invent something where your characters can meet up and
Yeah.
get intimate.
That's right. That's right. Take each other's pants off and nobody's going to notice. Like where can
Yeah,
that happen?
yeah.
Exactly. Um yeah. Okay, so something that I read while like after finishing the book, I was like watching some interviews with Tia Williams. And what she said, which I thought made so much sense to me, she said that her inspiration for this book was what if Romeo and Juliet hadn't died, but they instead just grew up. They had this intense love affair and then grew up and then met again, like in their 30s.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
I love that. So when she said that, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, I think that totally is what I mean. Obviously, like, and it's modernized, but like that does seem like what this story is. Like, they have this transformative week-long love affair, which I think is like similar to like Romeo and Juliet. They like only know each other for a few days, um, and then but they live and they go on to live and like lead these lives and become adults and like have history, and then they meet again. And what does that look like?
It was a great idea, I
Yeah.
think, behind a novel because, Romeo and Juliet is like such an early original love story and
Yep.
it's like so heightened. I mean, it's Shakespeare, so it's like so passionate and so heightened and like that as the springboard gives you so much room to play and lets the characters, I think by turning it not into a tragedy since they both don't die, making it a romance novel and
Mhm.
developing them further just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I like wish I had read that actually like before reading the book because I think I don't know. It just that's like yeah, it's such cool inspiration and I think she nailed it. Like it's really cool. It works for me. Um oh, the other thing I wanted to say is that this book is actually being adapted into a TV series. So that's cool. We'll keep an eye out for that. It doesn't have a date or anything or any like casting information. Um
Do we know what like streaming service or
I don't think it says. It says Will Packer Media, but I don't know what that is. I'm not familiar with that.
Hmm.
Yeah. But ears to the ground. I mean, I do feel like any book that gets like a Reese's pick has like a great shot at like being adapted. So love that. Can't wait. I'll definitely watch it.
definitely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie, is there anything else about this book that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
One thing that just kind of came up to me now was just I like that it's kind of an urban love
Mm-hmm.
story. Like it all takes place in New York City.
Yeah.
Well, the main part of the book does. And I feel like so often, at least with like Hallmark movies, it's always like
Yeah.
out on a
You
ranch
gotta
or a
go home to
beach
the
or the
small town.
mountains.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I kind of like that it's life in a city and
Mm-hmm.
like that all plays a part in it, like from Audrey's school to getting around to the dream house. Like, um, I think that's part of why I liked it is that it was a bit more imaginable or relatable to, our lives as people in, you know, the city of Chicago.
Yeah, I agree. Urban love. Yep.
Yeah.
And all the complications that entails.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of celebrities anyway, at least literary wise, but they do get like pictures taken of them on the street
Yeah, I
in New
know.
York.
Which that
And
part to
like,
me was like kind of stupid. I'm like,
yeah,
people don't know what authors look like. I just don't. Like, they're not. I mean, they're famous. Like, she's a famous author, like Stephenie Meyer level famous, which
Yeah.
is really, really famous. But I could not pick Stephenie Meyer out of a crowd. Could you?
Absolutely not.
No, let alone recognize her on the street and take a picture and post it to a Facebook page, like fan club. Like, I don't know. That to me was they were like getting paparazzi'd everywhere they went by just normal people, and I was like, this would never happen. This would never happen. They're not movie stars. But that's fine. It's okay. It was still really fun. I still really liked it. But that was like one issue that I had. Totally. Man, and I wish I could announce our March book right now, but we kind of haven't picked it. There's some debate going on. So look for that announcement on the Books with Brooks Instagram very shortly. And in the meantime, Charlie, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, busy life to come on here and talk about 7 Days in June by Tia Williams.
Yeah, always happy to come on by and chat about books with you.
I love it. Could do it all day. Wish it was my full-time job, truly.
One day.
One day.
You might need to write your own book.
I know.
I
really want to, but I have no idea where to begin.
Just base it like 60% off your own life and change the names.
There you go.
That's the
Look
out.
Look out, people in my life. I'm writing a book about you. Better be nice to me. All right. Well, happy reading.
Part of the Press Play Podcast Network.